So the last video we saw me playing on the river as Guy upstairs against Villain. What we saw there was, of course, I bet to 125, which was all in on the river. And that's obviously the last move I was ever going to make in that game. Now what's happened is Villain has finished the game and I've received an email from rangeversusrange.com saying that analysis is ready. So all the calculations have been done on the game to show us the results, and I can now log in and have a look at the results, as well as I can now see Villain's ranges, which is one of the most interesting things about competition mode. Really, just seeing if Villain was playing the way you thought he was. So I'm just going to log in again to rangeversusrange.com. Again, I'm signed into Google, but I'm not signed into rangeversusrange.com, so it'll just authenticate me. Now the email has a link in it, but I'm just going to go straight to. I'm not browsing from the email, so I'm just going to go straight to the finished game. So we've got finished games here, competition mode, which this one was, and we've got Villain versus Guy upstairs, heads up. Let's take a look. So we've got history tab, results tab. I'm going to show you the history tab in this video, and then maybe the results tab in a separate video. So really this is the same history tab that we've seen earlier during the game, but now I can actually see what Villain's doing. So if we take a look at the the pre-flop action here, we've got in fact I can click right through. We'll see his whole range action here pre-flop. Yeah, so he's folding 27% of the time, which I think is he's looking us up a lot here. He's clearly, I don't know. I think that's a lot of calling, and he's quite tight in his raising range as well. And I think what he's really trying to achieve here is probably he's happy to see a flop out of position and have he can have anything post flop, which I think is the benefit of this kind of strategy here. Calling 60% of the time, raising 13% of the time. So as I said, I'm going to be, when we see in the next video the results, we'll see that I get paid out for the 27% of fold equity immediately. So if we do the maths, I raised a 5, he's got 2, and there's seven chips. So I'm going to get, at this point, 27% of those 7 chips straight away. And then the other 73% of those 7 chips is what's left for us to play for. So we essentially, the rest of the hand is fighting over the other 73% of those chips. So I decide that. Villain happens to call here, so he happens to call. 60 to 13. With a ratio of 60 to 13, he's going to call. So, he's not calling 60% of the time. He's calling something like what's that? That's 5/6 of the time. He's calling 1/6 of the time. He's raising to 18 chips. So Villain calls. We see the flop. Villain checks. There's no donk bets here. Not particularly surprising. It's exactly what we assumed. So that's good hand reading, I suppose. Not too surprising. Here we see us betting 2/3 of the time, and through luck, happening to end up with a bet. And what that means is that those 34% of hands, which is all the yellow you see here, which is really just crap hands, is being removed from our range, and we're not paying for that. Okay, so he's not being paid out, or he's not getting paid out for the 34% of the time that he never sees a check here, because the software simply can't know what the results of the hand would have been had I checked here. So and certainly you and I can see this, that the hands I checked here are really bad hands. I mean, if it had gone the other way and I had happened to check in this particular game on the flop here, it would have been pretty much all over, apart from maybe hitting with some small amount of my range, hitting something on the turn. But that's just a bit of the variance of playing in competition mode. You have to play a few hands to start to get reasonable statistics. Not too many, because you don't have to play out every different combination, but you do need, to play a few hands so that your passive lines and your aggressive lines kind of average out. So I was lucky there, and we'll see that reflected in the results as well, I think. I mean, you're obviously always better off if you hit the top end of your range. It just sucks to be villain. But of course, he's playing passively as well, which doesn't help his cause. And we see that here with a fold 61% of the time he's folding, so I'm going to get paid out for that straight away. And he's calling with 40% of hands. Now, that looks like he's folding a lot, but remember, I bet twice the pot here, so I think as long as he's calling at least a third of the time, I'm not immediately profiting from my bluffs. So I'm going to need some chance to improve on the turn or the river for it to be worth bluffing. We see later on in the hand that I do improve with some of my range, so I think he's probably calling about the right amount. On the turn, he doesn't donk. Really no surprises there. I'd be very surprised if he did. If he really wants to start getting aggressive, it's probably better off check raising all in on the turn to take me off a bunch of my bluffs. In fact, that probably would have worked out really well here, because I do have a lot of bluffs in the end. Again, I got lucky hitting the 64. Well, not too lucky, but I got a little bit lucky hitting the 65% of my range that was betting. 65% chance of that happening, obviously. And then he's folding 46% of the time, calling 54% of the time. He only has to call 50% of the time to stop me from having an immediately profitable bluff. And he's calling a little bit more, which I guess is necessary to stop me from profiting with everything. We can see which hands he's doing this with here. Purple here shows that he's calling with his flush draws. So if he's got bottom pair and a flush draw, he's calling. He's calling with some good tens, not that it really matters, but he's got a few blockers there, and he's calling with any 10 that's got a flush draw. He's calling with king queen suited with a flush draw, which makes sense. I mean, if you look at it, you've got a lot of outs to beat top pair there. What would it be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 21. 21 outs, I think, to beat a weak top pair. Obviously priced in. And he's folding a lot of tens, but he can afford to do that because I make a pot size bet. He doesn't have to continue with much of his range to stop my bluffs from profiting. So maybe he could call with some more of them and play exploitably. I guess he could, but he doesn't want to feel like too much of a calling station, I suppose. It is. People do find it hard, I think, generally. A lot of people on range versus range, you will find they really don't want to be a calling station. They don't want to be that guy. So interesting, strategy for you to try out if you're thinking about it. Just be a calling station, see how that works for you. You're probably going to have a bad time, especially once people know that's what you're doing. So, and then villain calls. This was always going to happen. There's his calling range. A few tens, mostly jacks. So, what's next? He checks the river, of course, and we both check and bet. What that means here is, because when I check, we have a showdown. I'm checking back. We have a showdown. The software is going to incorporate that into the results, but also it's going to let me bet, which is what you see here, 32% of the time. Here, betting 125 chips, and then villain is going to face my bet. He's going to fold some and call some as well. So we actually end up with two showdowns in one hand. Now, that's a pretty wacky concept. Once you've got your head around the concept of fold equity being paid out and the hand continuing at a reduced impact on the results, the next crazy thing for you to get your head around is the fact that you can have two or more showdowns in one hand. So we'll just have a look again. I'll talk through the details of it. So we've got villain we've got villain checking. Sorry, we've got guy upstairs checks 68% of the time, and then what happens? Well, we've got a showdown between villain and guy upstairs for 150 chips, and villain is kicking ass in that showdown. Why? Why is villain kicking ass? I think that's because a lot of the checks are me giving up on bluffs. So let's get rid of that. But I've got a lot of jacks. I'm checking back a lot of jacks, and that's interesting. And I'm still not doing well. So, but there's probably a lot more. I mean, even the jacks are often losing to. I mean, he's got a lot of jacks as well, so they're often losing, and I'm giving up on a lot of bluffs. So he's doing very well there when I check back, and then also I bet. So that's my betting range. Pretty much the nuts. I'm not even betting jack. Jack ace, jack king, jack queen. Really figuring him for having mostly calling with jacks, I guess. Interesting to consider whether or not I could actually I could value bet my strong jacks. We'll get to that in a second. And so against this this raising range, villain is calling with 68% of the time. Now it's almost a pot size bet, not quite. He doesn't have to call with 50% of hands. He's got to call with a bit more, but 68, almost 70%. It's quite loose. But that's okay because the Jack 2, Jack 5 type weak hands that he's calling with, it really is just bluff catching. And I'm bluffing often enough, as he should reasonably expect. I'm going to have heaps of bluffs in my range. I'm bluffing often enough that he's right to do that. So no mistakes there. Just interesting to consider that could I have value bet my top jacks. Anyway, we'll get back to that and just have a quick look at the showdown here. We see a guy upstairs with 55% equity. Nice. It shouldn't be too surprising because I'm betting mostly the nuts, and with a not quite pot size bet, I'm going to be adding in about half as many bluffs as I got value hands. So if it was only the nuts, if I really had a polarized range, you'd expect me to have 2/3 equity, maybe a bit more because it's not quite a pot size bet. So again, villain's not doing too badly here. Shouldn't be concerned about only having 45% equity when I do bet. He gets most of his value from his range when I check back, which I do on the river quite a lot. Now, just to the other question, finally, about whether or not I could have bet my jacks. So if we just have a look at my range here, we see I'm not even betting ace jack. Let's skip that one, go back to my range action. We're seeing I'm checking back even ace jack. Obviously, my thinking here is that if I value bet, if I bet the jacks, well, what's he really calling with? He's probably not calling down 3 streets with second pair, unless he really is a calling station. So can I really afford to be value betting jacks when it's really a pair of jacks or better that's going to be calling me on the river? Well, let's do the analysis. We can do this manually. It might be automated at some point, but it's not too hard to do. Here we are. Now, it's really his his calling range. It's a question of, the appropriate hand for me to value bet is one that's ahead of more than 50% of his calling range. So, not sure how many combos he's got in his calling range here, but we'll just have a quick look and figure out whether or not I can bet those top jacks. So let's have a look. Let's say, question is, we know I can't bet the weak jacks. Question is, could I bet something like, could I bet king jack maybe? Okay, so we've got hands that beat us: 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. And if we're considering betting king jack, then half of those ones as well. So, because they tie, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. So if we're beating 49 combos when we hold king jack, then it's a break-even bet. So let's have a look at the hands we're beating with king jack. Half of these ones again, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 49. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51. Clearly this is telling us that we can't value bet King Jack. Additionally, if we do value bet King Jack here, villain is going to, the simple fact of us holding King Jack is, by card removal effects, is actually going to make it more likely that villain has a hand that beats us, like the two pair hands that don't have a jack in them. So Ace Jack potentially could have been a bet, but King Jack definitely was right to check back on the river. So we've played pretty well there in that regard. Going to put that away. I think just based on reviewing this hand, our hand reading was pretty accurate, and we played pretty well. We were a little bit lucky, and we'll see that in the results in a second. I think the most interesting thing really in this hand in terms of reviewing the history is, what does villain do when we bet twice the pot? Let's have a look. He's folding a lot of hands, and all the ones in the top half and left side of this really do have some equity, and we are very happy to see them fold. So this is pretty good for us. I mean, we've really simplified his range to top pair, second pair, and third pair, and the medium pocket pairs. And that really does make it easy for us to play the rest of the hand. So I'm pretty happy with that strategy. Only thing I think in summary that we did wrong here is really over leveraging ourselves on the turn. Where is it? Here. This is really just betting too much. So if villain was exploiting us, if villain was just being a calling station, he can just call this one a bunch. And then we just, we've already seen we can't value bet our random jacks, jacks with no kicker on the river. So we just have to give up so much on the river. Villain would have been playing very well to really calling station us on the turn here. And I guess, everyone knows, against a maniac like me, being a calling station on a reasonably dry flop, a reasonably dry turn is not a bad strategy. Alright, so in the next video we will take a look at the results.